couple days ago, I made a video talking about how a lot of the endgame activities are based more off of what the game decides and less off of what a player does. And I'm going to be talking more in detail about how that is an issue for Pirate 101. Now, I compared Pirate 101 to Blood Bowl and chess and said that Pirate 101 was quite a bit more like Blood Bowl and less like chess, but I also could have compared it to Go and Risk. The point being that both Risk and Blood Bowl have a high chance-based factor, where despite the fact that decision-making, assessing risk versus reward, and positioning throughout the map does play a part in both those games, there is still a heavy chance-based factor involved that can determine the outcome of the game, and quite often does. Now, in chess and Go, it is the player's moves, and those are the only things that matter. Now, I'm just going to point something out. Both chess and Go are some of the oldest existing games to date. They are still around despite being literally thousands of years old. Now, the issue with making Pirate 101 more like Risk or Blood Bowl as opposed to chess and Go is because people in Pirate literally spend months questing through the game, sometimes years questing through the game, and oftentimes they go off and they farm gear later on. So if they have a combat system that will screw them over based simply off of chance instead of the moves they actually make, they are not going to take the game seriously anymore, and they are going to end up quitting, which they often do. Most people quit before they even get to Cool Ranch or Mushu. And a lot of older players are quitting Pirates because of the RNG that is in this game. So that is the reason why it's an issue. This is an MMO game. It's not, a game that that people just play from time to time. People actually invest in this game. So it really needs a serious combat system. I'm going to be talking quite a bit about PvP, but realize that a lot of what I say will also be applicable to PvE as well. So the first thing I want to discuss is deck RNG. So if you're not familiar with how the Pirate 101 deck system works, we get most of our cards from pieces of gear, and then we get the rest of our cards from our trainer and the side schools that we go into. And those are arranged as far as likelihood for them to show up first. So you have like the first slot, the second slot, the third slot, etc., etc. Now, it does add a certain amount of frustration when a player is, say, up against a swashbuckler or a buccaneer who can simply charge across the field in 2 turns and kill them if they do not draw a fort soon enough. So that is one area where the game can screw someone over, and a player doesn't have any moves they can do to really prevent it. Now, there are some things you can do. You can go into a corner and then position your companions around, but that will usually put you at quite a bit of a disadvantage. You can put a hold the line unit in front, and that will prevent. That will give you more time to sort out your deck while you're in the match. So there are some moves around it. However, I don't really think that it is enough. Now, what I would like to see is cards show up in the way in which they are arranged. Now, that poses another issue, and that is that you don't always arrange your deck in a way in which the other player plays. So, in order to count for that, what I would suggest is a side deck. Now, in Pirate 101, we have doubloons, right? Well, doubloons are banned for a very good reason, because they are not the typical abilities like Assassin Strike, Veiler's Fortress, Revive, Brutal Charge, Vicious Charge, Walk in Darkness and in the usual stuff. They are really overpowered things. Like one of them pushes everyone back and reduces their accuracy. Another one summons a really powerful summon. Another one increases your weapon power, usually double your weapon power or your mojo, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then you can gain like a quarter of your health back. Those are just some of the examples of what the balloons do. Now, what I would like to see is the balloons that are like the standard abilities that you draw from a side deck in case you don't have the powers that you want, thus decreasing deck RNG. So the two things to recap that would be good is powers showing up and the way in which you range it, and a side deck where you can pull cards. You can have cards at the ready that you can burn your regular deck and pull for. So that is my first suggestion in eliminating how RNG affects the game. Now, Ratbeard was kind enough to join my stream when I was streaming the Pet Morph giveaway last Saturday, and he explained that the game was based more around making players feel powerful and making the combat fun in that sense, while questing through and farming stuff in the game. So I kind of get the point of overpowered doubloons. However, it would be great if there were PvP and then there were PvE doubloons. So as I mentioned with the side deck before, with those. However, I'm not saying that the PvE doubloons should be gotten rid of, right? Now, on that note, players do find it rather annoying when they have to click the notification saying that their doubloons got trashed, because the room that doubloons have in your backpack is very limited. It's 20 each, right? And you can't sell them. So, a nice little update for everyone, the PvP and the PvE players, would be to allow people to sell those doubloons somewhere for, say, gold, or in some cases, scrip, if that were applicable. So that would be a good idea. I would say selling them in the bazaar would be great. Then players would be able to buy, say, treasure bass if they wanted it, so they could get more gold consistently. Because for someone like myself who doesn't really farm anything in the game anymore except for pet gold, that would be very advantageous. And some other players are very much the same way in that regard. The next thing that really needs to be addressed, or compared to the other stuff that I'll be mentioning in this video, it's much simpler to explain. This would be the spawn of players. And I'm going to give you an example of a witch doctor, and I'm also going to give you an example of an Exeter or an Emmet that have slowing abilities and that have long range attacks. So if a witch doctor spawns behind a pillar, they can't mourn song, so that gives the opposing player one turn over them to move up. Now it takes about 2 turns to cross the current battle arena that we have in the spar chamber, right? Especially if the player has fast 2 trained, which if you are a competent PvP player, you should have fast 2 trained. Okay, it's something you do not want to forego. Now, if the witch doctor player gets second turn, then that gives the other player 2 moves that they can cross the board before the witch doctor can do anything. So spawn in that sense plays a decent role. So if a witch doctor spawns behind a pillar, it can possibly affect them greatly. Then you have the case of an Exeter or a witch doctor with, say, Widow's Touch or another slow. Okay. Now, if a player cannot use their slow, then the slow becomes essentially useless. And it's simply because they were stuck behind a pillar and they got second turn. Okay? Now, what would be great is make it so that units either spawn without pillars in front of them, or all units spawn with a pillar in front of them. To be honest, since 1v1s in particular are so much in favor of Buccaneers as opposed to a long-range class like a Witch Doctor, it would be better to make it so that all units spawn they spawn without pillars in front of them. So that, or increase the arena size. That or increase the arena size and have them spawn behind pillars. So that's the issue there. The spawn is another way in which the game helps determine who will win as opposed to the moves that the players make. The next area for improvement would be card displays and damage rolls. So when you look at a card, say it's a backstab and it says it does 600 damage, well, the card could do either 400 damage or possibly even 1,000 damage, and it's absolutely ridiculous that a lot of that is pure chance. Now, they should decrease the margins between that damage, or they should completely get rid of damage rolls altogether. Now, personally, I don't think that it adds anything to the game, and I doubt very many players would actually miss it. So I say just get rid of it, but obviously the people who work on the game make the final call, and it's up to them. So either one of those fixes would be most welcome, especially to the PvP players, but I think some of the PvE players as well. Another thing that affects the damage that an ability does would be the chance for it to critical. Now, currently our critical system is based off of the base stat that a unit has and the target, the ratio of that. So that and other critical buffs like Shadow Dance and Discipline play a role in increasing or decreasing the chance of a critical. Now, criticals in this game don't usually double the damage that is dealt. It's not as bad as Wizard 101 used to be in that respect. So I'm a bit thankful for that. However, there is room for improvement, and what I would suggest doing is making it so that you don't have a chance to critical, but you do critical damage. Now, what would this mean? Well, currently we have bonus damage from our base stats. So a Buccaneer will get an extra weapon power every 4 strength that he has. So instead of that, what I would suggest is the bonus damage being based off of the ratio of the base stat and the target. So Buccaneers would do more damage to weak targets. Swashbucklers and Musketeers would do more damage to targets that are not particularly agile. And Privateers and Witch Doctors will be able to do more damage to targets that have weak will. So you have a little bit of meaning behind it as well, if you really think about it. Think about it for a second, right? Buccaneers, they're strong, so they'll be able to overpower people. Swashbucklers and Musketeers will be able to deal with people who are not particularly agile, so they can't move out of the way of a shot or the swipe of a blade. So that makes sense there. And, Privateers, they're the leaders. And then you have, Witch Doctors, they have Hoodoo. So their abilities would be more effective versus players who don't have particularly strong will. So there's a bit of symbolism in there as well. So it would add to the game in that respect. Alright, so I am running out of time, but there are a lot of other things I want to talk about, like how criticals would affect Blade Storm, accuracy and dodge, and some other factors in this game. And of course, pet spawn RNG, which ironically you're going to see here in a second. But I do, plan on probably sometime over the summer making a couple more videos talking about stuff, but at the moment, I'm pretty sure I've provided enough material here for a good sized update, a good and much needed update. So, pretty sure that would keep them busy for a little while. But as I said before, there's room for improvement. Obviously, I play Pirate101. I enjoy Pirate101 quite a bit. There are just some things that frustrate me a lot about the game. It just doesn't feel as fulfilling because of some of the RNG that we have. So that's pretty much it, guys. I'll see y'all in another video.